Why dinosaurs? Why that specifically? Why not dragons? Dragons are in the market. Like, a lot of shows are there.
We never told there will not be any other creatures. This is going to be dinosaurs.
I feel like that's a bit of a tease for the game.
Yeah, that's kind of an Easter egg which you will see in the
Okay.
month.
Hello everyone, welcome to our second episode of our TILTCAST podcast. So in this episode, we have a really special guest. We have Mr. Jobin over here, who is the co-founder of Norian Games. So would you like to give a brief intro about yourself so that we can get
Yeah.
started?
Sure, Akhilesh. I'm Jobin Joseph. I'm the co-founder and the founding team member of Norian Games. We are a indie studio, primarily working on our first IP now, which is called Aldin of Ancients. It is a open world survival simulation, dinosaur game.
Mhm.
Primarily, the target is PC,
Mhm.
then later to console. So we are in that space.
Oh.
And I'm technically, talking about myself, I'm more of a finance guy who loved games. I had friends who really loved games, who were very close.
Mhm.
And that is how I came into games.
Okay. So you mentioned you are more of a financial head when it comes to the studio, right? So what sort of roles do you handle when you say you are a finance person?
Yeah, I look after the finance and ops, a bit of ops side.
Mhm.
Finance as in the classic finance that you bookkeeping and compliance
Mhm.
related stuff. And also, yes, you're a startup sort of in the studio, the aspect of raising investment, because that is the fuel that drives the organization forward. Managing the investors and other stakeholders. So it's just not the investor the angle of institutional stakeholders. Like, for example, we are based out of Trivandrum. So,
Mhm.
you have to manage case, the relationships there. We have a good relation working STPI,
Mhm.
image, part of their cohort. Then you have other entities like Unreal that you have to have a relationship. So I look after the whole broad spectrum
So
of that.
when we say finance, it's not just finance.
Yeah.
There is a lot of other variables as well, right?
Yeah. So you have to look after. So it's a very broad space.
Mhm.
At the same time, since we are a small studio
Mhm.
in our infancy stage now, it can be managed, but that's not the case with other bigger studios. So I look after kind of all these things other than the production. My founder and my very dear friend Jake is the head of production and CEO of the company.
Mhm.
We've been college friends.
Okay.
So it's a
So
13
was
year-
that like the inception where it started, or the idea was like different?
Yeah, so it's a 14-year relationship with Jake.
Mhm.
We were in different colleges, but in the same hostel.
Okay.
We were in the close by rooms. I was more of a sports person, outdoor person. Play all sorts. And I loved sports.
Mhm.
Jake was always into games.
Mhm.
He loved games. And I still remember when we were in first year of graduation, he had the most flashiest gaming laptop at that time.
Oh, so that's a flex.
Yeah, he always had a good gaming gear. I was always into games, and I used to play games. Yes, I still play games. But yeah, it's the friendships and friends that we made along the way, and the experiences, that has resulted being part of the games.
So starting an indie studio in game development or games is sort of a really big task, right? It's not just you get to make a game and publish it, you make millions, right?
Yeah, it is challenging, specifically when you are in the PC and console space as an indie, because it's a bigger task to create games in that space. Yeah, of course, mobile games are complex. There are more complex battle royale games than what we are building. But for a studio that is attempting it for the first time, it's a bigger challenge just because you need a lot of resources, financial and human resources, and you have to find all this.
Why dinosaurs? Why that specifically? Why not dragons? Dragons are in the market. Like, a lot of shows are there.
We never told there will not be any other creatures. This is going to be dinosaurs.
Oh, okay. I feel like that's a bit of a tease for the game.
Yeah, that's kind of an Easter egg which you will see in the coming
Okay.
months. See, it's Jake. He's the lead game designer. So he's always been a lover of games.
Mm-hmm.
He is. It was his also like if I'm having a rough day, I usually escape through. You find some sort of escape route, right? So I either go out
Mhm.
or go to gym or do a sport that I love or just chat to an old friend. For Jake, it is always one of the great part of his life has been games. And he's played a lot of indies. And one thing that always fascinated me when we all, right, all of us who are getting into games are attracted by the mainstream big IPs, the flashy titles, right? But he used to play a lot of indies. And he started playing Isle. Before that, it was, I think, Isle and Ark was together. He started playing, and he's also Jake has a doctorate in biotechnology, marine biology. He's always been the bio sort of guy who has a lot of interest in paleo side of it. So that is something that started the discussions. We had a different couple of areas, niche that we wanted to do something. But of course, then it's the motivation of everybody who started a studio is either a disgruntled player who had some issues with the developers of a specific title and felt like I can do better, or somebody who has just understood being part of the industry and wanted to do something in the similar space. So Jake has been a player of these sort of genre for quite some. And we had also other ideas, right? So some different game niches that we were looking at when we were trying to do it. We always felt dinosaur genre is emerging on a business side. Why I backed it is because it's emerging genre. Second is that it's an indie friendly genre. You have only got Studio Wildcard, and the Jurassic Park makers. These are the two big IPs. Arc is too big. They're awesome. The game is the benchmark in Dinosaur. And then there are indies like you have Aldron Studios that do Path of Titans. Have the makers of Iron, have B Superman. These are small indie studios. These were their first IPs, self-published. Some Path of Titans is D2C. They're not even in Steam. But the fun fact, even when our community, when we look, it's a brilliant community to engage and work with in your building. They're very open, receptive, but they're very argumentative. Like they are very passionate about it. Not argumentative, very passionate about what they do, why they play the games. And it's also a melting pot of different type of players. You've got people who love survival. You've got people who love singing. There are people who love the science, the dinosaurs. It's very interesting genre. We felt it is indie friendly. That is how Dinosaur.
That is how you came to the conclusion of
Yeah.
Dinosaurs.
Also, when you have it's a clearer space. It's easy to execute a long term business. When it's a very cluttered space, how do you differentiate yourself? Whatever you bring as a new feature is just a patch for the existing. You can easily make it. So I think another thing that was not
So you felt like Dinosaurs is a genre where you could define some part of it. Like it's a genre where
we want to be that is a goal. We want to be a very strong player in that specific genre as a studio. And also, we will be open. It all depends on the future, how this IP comes out, the DLCs that we plan comes out. So it's an interesting space, and everybody loves a dinosaur. Every age group.
Yes.
I talk to people in 50s, 60s. Everybody loves a dinosaur. Everybody is fascinated by this creature that was there before us that went extinct, right? So everybody loves it. So that is another thing. Dragon is a mythical creature, right? So, but everybody loves it, even though it looks very scary for some people. But it's part of a culture. Chinese culture is very. They love dragons. That's part of the very close to their culture. So even like I explored something that people in Brazil are they love dinosaurs because some of the fossils, early fossils were found. They're very passionate about the cause. So there are so many sub subplots to this. So that is why we are very passionate about the dinosaurs. We love those creatures.
So this decision wasn't made in like a day. Saying, what about dinosaurs? It wasn't chosen
No,
like that.
it was a very calculated decision. We were very sure. We prototyped, then we made it.
Okay.
But we spent almost 1.5, 2 years prototyping, figuring out what we wanted to do. It was just not all of a sudden the team came together and thought we create the next AAA game. No, we were very probably everybody wants to do the first IP as their best IP, but we always felt the first game should be the most sensible. It should be the easiest to execute. It should be very much economically so should appeal as a studio because your best game might be your third or fourth IP. And even if whenever we say right, every filmmaker or game design, they all think that theirs work is the best. You have the creator bias. It's not sure. You're not sure whether the audience will like.
Feel the same, right?
So there are so many stories like great movies, but people in Malayalam, Padmarajan is being touted now, but everybody loves the work. Those movies didn't do well at that time because they were way ahead of. So there are those factors also that you have to consider. When the genre is ready for the IP, I think we felt confident in the genre community that we have. Very supportive, very honest conversations, and very active. They're very active. Another thing.
Okay, so we are talking about the future, and in reference to that, there is a lot of new upcoming technologies like AR, VR, and the scary part, AI for our industry. So, how do you like include or compare with this ever-changing industry?
Technological changes the reality. We can't escape. AI is going to is the next tech. It's the tech that's going to transform the current technological level where we are currently placed to a different level. We are yet not able to see the full capabilities of the large LLM language models and stuff. It is something that's going to happen. We have to accept and adapt to it. Don't think it's going to be that disruptive in gaming because it's a creative space. You need people to execute. It's creative. And gaming, I always feel is about keeping the players engaged, right? It's the immersion. It's narrating what you want them to experience. That I think there is lot of human aspect.
So, you feel like in gaming, especially, the human element is a major part of it.
It's always going to all the big IPs, right? So Hideo Kojima's of the world, Miyazaki's, Miyamoto's, all these guys. These are crafters of legacy, evergreen IPs. That's the human side. It's the human narrative capability. I don't know when AI is going to take over that, but as of now, in next 5 years, I don't see. But yes, it will affect gaming very significantly. There are a lot of startups and companies working on technologies that basically will reduce the cost, reduce the workforce dependence, and all these things. We don't know how these technologies, how much they can deliver as of now. But yeah, it's going to change and have a lot of changes, just like how the 5G or 4G and 3G, all these things change the way we behave, consume, and interact. Similarly, it's going to have a lot of change. Something we have to just accept and we can't complain about it. Yes.
You have to see it how it comes, right?
Yeah, how it evolves, right? So it might be positive also. Because the current issue in gaming is, I feel, the bigger first world problems or the big studio problems is the cost. There's a lot of stress on IPs to consistently deliver economic numbers because the costs are over the roof. There's delays in all these things. I think so. That is why you're seeing a lot of layoffs and stuff in game. That's going to keep happening because every IP cannot deliver the ROIs that companies are looking at. That's not the case. That's not how it works. All the big budget movies doesn't work. So similarly, I think cost factor is something that will come down with AI. We don't know rest of it, like artistically, what are they going to do and stuff. So very gray.
So, what I feel like is what AI could help with is the cost thing you mentioned.
Yeah.
Reducing that would like help with the human element, so that we can be more creative in our executions, right?
Yeah. In I think it's a very gray area for us to probably in a year or two we'll have more clarity, because I've seen a lot of companies building character models out of AI, but they're very elementary now. The level of perfection that is there. But I think let's wait and see how it evolves. I'm not very, I would say, I don't exactly know how it's going to affect. I think it will have serious ramifications. It will change the industry for good or bad.
So, in our industry, as you mentioned earlier, mobile games have been a big behemoth in the last 3 years or last 5 years. They've grown drastically. Right? So, are you planning to release the current version of your game to mobile or maybe in the future?
Yeah, that's something you're looking at, thinking about, but primary focus has been always PC and consoles, because we truly believe in that. The certain things that we believe. Mobile, yes, but not probably this version.
Mhm.
And that's up to Jake. It's his call to take it to mobile or not. So that's the creative side. How do mobiles? Yeah, mobile games are very powerful. And data is accessible to it. And we have seen a drastic number of games rise in India. But again, I think particularly in our space, in the Indian market, if you mobile gaming is growing, but it's very, what do you say, specific genres are only the biggest chunk of it, right? Like the battle royale. Everybody loves the battle royale in mobile. That space is very much, uh, I think, saturated, because there are great games, and there are great companies who are doing superb stuff there. So, first of all, we would like to assess after our PC launch and consoles, is there a market for this? And is it something that we can execute? It's going to be a strategic decision. Yeah, something we will.
Possibly in the future. Fingers crossed for that. So another thing that is coming up, or a trend in our industry, is the concept of a metaverse, or a major title or a major IP that is an umbrella of sorts that customizes or publishes smaller IPs. Like Fortnite is trying to do that. Minecraft is trying to do that. So, what is just like your 2 cents on that? Like, is
It's a,
that
it's a very good. What I feel is it's a brilliant new door that is being opened. The micro creative space. You create a particular level in Minecraft, per se. I recently saw Kai Sanath and Aisha Speed streaming for 100 hours. Yes. Minecraft level. The audience that pulled out to watch it, right? So they came to watch the whole thing. So it's growing in popularity. It is a very interesting space. I think more and more bigger IPs and studios will explore that. Very interesting space. Very much, very much opens up and diversifies your portfolios. Right? So you don't have to specifically keep specific idea regarding a game. It just makes the entire thing boundaries gets opened. Right? So it's very interesting. I'm very excited about it. AR VR again is a very new space. So much excitement around it. You saw Sony bringing in VR
PlayStation
devices, VR devices, Vision Pro coming in. I think Meta is also working on it. So another interesting space, and I think it's going to do massively well in simulation games, the MMORPG. It's very exciting space, and I'm very excited for that.
So I asked this question to the last person who came here. A person who is getting into this industry, what is like the do's and don'ts would from your experience would you give them as an advice?
Yeah, there is no thumb rule for it. It's your journey, it's basically, and it's a very different journey for you. But some things that you have to keep in mind is it's a very competitive space. It's very competitive. It is a very much what do you say, customer experience centered space. What's the player immersion, player engagement, all these things, and it's a space that requires a lot of criticality. I feel at the initial phases because certain things can't be executed at the stage where you are, and you have to have an open mind. What do I want to do as my first time, or what do I want to do as my first role? Right? You are not. I always say we have a freelance platforms like Upwork, Fiverr. You see that $50 per hour or $40 per hour, and that should not be a motivation because studios. I don't know how many studios are going to pay you as a fresh. Also, if you're coming in as a founder, I like to separate this. I'll talk first about the founder, right? So the founder aspect, be very practical, find the right team. Team is the most crucial. People, you need a team that can execute stuff. But at the same time, you need to understand your team as a founder or a co-founder. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What can we actually do rather than just starting a project which directly competes with a legacy IP of a legacy studio that is built on $1 billion production, $500 million production budget. You can never execute that level. That is not possible because of the underlying metrics in finance, the human resource, the expertise. And also you have to understand is that these big IPs that owe you as a player, not result of 1 year. It's the 20, 30 years of experience of that studio in creating different IPs, games, packaging it, constant feedback. They're able to, they have a system in place, SOPs in place. They have teams in place who can execute. They have a talent pool to select from. They have a methodology to take you as an intern and make you as a senior game. All these things are not for me. So be very practical in the approach. Great games have come at the first point. Is Stardew, solo developer, 5 years, big hit. So, but he was very practical in his approach. He found a niche. He developed it, put his head down to listen to the community. Successful. So these things very open, and also it's a global industry. So it's a global sentiment that you have to understand regarding certain genres. Why people love those games? What is the fundamental reason? For example, for us, there's Path of Titans, there is I, which are our direct competition, Beast Above. Now, Idle was a basic shell of a game. They released it. And when Path of Titans came, when after 2020, it was a better game in so many features. But people still play it because there's a soul to that game. That way the dinosaurs, the way that and way the dinosaurs interact, right? So there is a beauty to it. There's a immersion aspect. So you have to understand why, how you want to set up a studio, which genre you want to work, how practical that particular IP that you want to make is for you at the place where you are at that point of your career or as a founder. Third is you have to understand the competition. Why those games are good? Why? What can I add something different to the customer experience or the player experience? So player experience is core. Immersion is core. So these are things that I think as founders you need. Then as a young guy or a graduate starting out in gaming, you have to understand that your initial roles probably will be in indie studios. And indies are indies. They will not have the resources of big studio. And even if you're starting in a bigger studio, the thing is you will not get the salaries that you're seeing in newspapers or blog posts. You have an internship cycle. You have a induction cycle. They take you through the journey. And if you're good enough, they keep you. You get similarly with indies, it's the similar journey. You are hired in as a junior dev, junior animator. You have to uh, grow with the project. There are going to be uncertain because you're part of industry. You have to be ready to accept. You might be compensated with a salary, probably these jobs or what. So these things you and also you have to understand these projects have a very crucial role in your career because you are in gaming. Your I feel biggest validation in the resume is the IPs that you have worked on, games you have worked on, how well they're fed or are they buggy or has the game even come out. These things. So you have to be willing to do that. It's a creative space. You have to understand. Like I have friends who is my schoolmate, cinematographer, famous cinematographer now in Malayalam movies. I've seen his journey, years of working as assistant, right? So that is a journey you have to. This is an entertainment industry, and also has a lot of technology and engineering. One interesting story from our own studio is that we have an animator called Kishore. He's from Tamil Nadu. He used to work freelance and do animations and humanoids or quadrupeds he had. But when he started, yes, it was difficult for him. But I have seen across last 1.5 years his growth, the journey, quality improvement. He's worked very hard on his skills, and now we don't have to even give him much referrals or reviews because he just he cracked the visualization. He's able to visualize how this creature will behave by just seeing a video. The design thinking is around it, all these things. This is the most important thing. Journey. Like, you have to be ready to embrace the journey. Even as a founder, even as a guy, graduate, young grad, somebody who's even transitioning to gaming. It's a very it's a brilliant industry, but it has its that is and there is no magic pill in gaming. Like people think it's just not every gaming company is flooded with cash. Or there's so much free money in game.
You can't just join a studio and be set for life.
Yeah, you're just going to get $200,000 package. That's not how it works. It's a journey. Even the studios are on journeys. It's multiple. If you're changing from indie, very small indie studio, then you might go to a mid-size indie studio. Then you go to super indie. In middle of this, you might change from PC console to mobile, or mobile to PC console, and then you just keep shifting around. So that is how people every career, right? That is similar here. It's everybody wants to be that guy in gaming, but to understand it's a very competitive global industry, very very sensitive industry.
It's a slow journey, but it's a journey worth taking, right?
Yeah, that's a very interesting journey. You meet a lot of interesting people, creative people.
So, as a co-founder as well as a finance head, what is like a few aspects that you're looking forward to in the coming years? Challenges or problems that might occur in the industry that you're kind of sort of preparing at the moment?
As a co-founder, yes, I'm looking for meaningful outcomes for everybody involved with us in the studio. Like starting from the team that we have built across the year, the core team, the larger team we have, our investors, others, institutional stakeholders, our players, community, meaningful outcomes. The challenges, of course, is going to be everything depends on your product, right? So that is something that keeps us awake at night. Product, how it's going to do, how it's going to come out. Everybody in creative, like when we create something, we always have this notion, right? Is my product going to do? But overall, larger picture, industry wise, I'm very interested in the trends that is happening. I think challenges we went through tougher periods previously, but you're seeing now good games coming out from everywhere. China just had their first big AAA hit. You've got Coral Island from Indonesia doing exceptionally well. You've got studios from Brazil, Africa, all these coming in. So it's a very interesting time. Challenges are going to be same. It's the new technology, technological disruption. How is the economics of gaming going to change with the technological disruption? Uh, How are we going to see any drastic shift in the way games are being distributed? That is something which actually takes a lot of thought from me. Um, Methods of financing games, publisher studio relationships. You're seeing a lot of change in the change from the conventional publisher, right? So it's no longer that rigid publishing structure publisher, and you have a sort of a working relationship based on percentages of revenue split. It's becoming more aligned. Everybody wants to work together. So one thing is the resource allocation, and how do you find resources? That is one thing. Technological disruptions, games distribution. What's going to change? Is it always going to be the Steam Epic Store for PC console and the console outlets, or are you going to see emergence of new console players as technology chipsets, microprocessors are coming in? Uh, You're seeing Snapdragon, Qualcomm making huge progress. Graphic cards are no longer going to be needed. So are we going to see drastic change in the way consoles are going to be built? Handheld, the new age of handhelds, very niche but very emerging. Distribution, new platforms, new outlets. There are a lot of studios now going D2C, direct to consumer. Are we going to see more of that? Are we going to see the big studios going D2C from distribution angle? And from the financing angle, yes. Are we going to see more VC spend on the conventional studios which are working on IPs in console PC space, rather, or is it just going to be as like we are more interested in putting our resources in the mobile space? How is mobile space going to transform with AI and more technology emerging in ARM based chipsets? So it's all very interesting. Certain times, cool times. Yeah, very excited.
I think that's about it for our episode 2 of our podcast. Thank you for listening. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure you give us a follow. If you're listening to us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. And if you have any sort of doubts or queries you want to ask me or Jobin, you can drop them in the comments. And until next time, bye.
Thank you.